Let's get your lineup set for Week 13 fantasy football. Drop a like if you enjoy these videos every week. Let's start with the Thanksgiving games, best day of the year, eat a ton of food, watch football. It's fantastic. You got to know who to start, right? Green Bay versus Detroit. This is projected to be a fairly high-scoring game. The Vegas lights are green for Detroit, yellow for Green Bay. Either way you look at this, there are some tough matchups in this game, however. Josh Jacobs has a bad matchup against a Detroit Lions defense that has allowed the second least amount of points to running backs this year, but you still have to start him. We're going to have him in the A tier and Emmanuel Wilson in the H tier. For the wide receivers, it's a very good matchup. The Lions have allowed a lot of points to wide receivers in fantasy football this year. And so Christian Watson in the D tier. Look, Christian Watson's put together a pretty decent string of games here, and I feel like at this point you probably have to just go ahead and plug him into your lineup. His last two games here, 20 and 9 points, but 5 and 7 targets in those games. And so right now, it looks like he's kind of the guy there. It is a good matchup. He's going to be big play dependent, but I'm going to say start for Christian Watson as well. I feel like you have to start him against a matchup, against the Detroit Lions is fairly favorable. Romeo Doubs in the H tier, I'm going to say meh. I don't feel very good starting Romeo Doubs, but it's a good matchup, like I said. And Dontavian Wicks, I'm going to say to sit. No consistency out of a lot of these receivers this year. And then going to the Detroit Lions side of the ball, Packers defense is tough. Jahmyr Gibbs you have to start. He's, of course, an S tier guy. He dropped 55 points last week. But Monty in the G tier this week, I'm going to probably just go ahead and say sit. I think it's probably going to be Jahmyr Gibbs' show this year on Thanksgiving. I don't know. Monty could have a touchdown. Monty can be a meh, and if you think he's going to get a touchdown, throw him in your lineup, and if not, leave him out. Amon-Ra St. Brown in the S tier, of course, is going to be a start, and Jameson Williams in the D tier. It is a bad matchup. Again, Green Bay's secondary is pretty good here. We do have him in the D tier, though, and I think after recent weeks, he had 0 points last week. I totally understand that, but the 3 weeks before that, he was above 15 points. I personally would start Jameson Williams this week in a game where, again, there projects to be a lot of points scored in this game, and if the Detroit Lions have to start passing the ball, Jameson Williams will get work. And so for that reason, I'll say start for JMO, even though it's a tough matchup. Now, Kansas City and Dallas. For the running backs here, if Isaiah Pacheco plays, which we have him as playing at this point, we're going to have Kareem Hunt in the D tier. I'm going to say start for Kareem Hunt because Kareem Hunt he looked really good against the Colts last week, which is against the Colts. It doesn't mean much, but I do think he's somebody that if Isaiah Pacheco does come back and he's not 100% healthy, could get a lot of work. And of course, he's got touchdowns in most of his games this year. Isaiah Pacheco, I'm going to say sit in his first week back in the G tier. Rashee Rice, banged up. My gosh, if this dude doesn't play, I'm going to flip my lid. S tier, if he does play against Dallas, is a dream matchup. I've been waiting all freaking season for this matchup. I might not have him this week. Hopefully he plays. I'm going to go ahead and I should have another day of practice reports here. Rashee Rice, expected to practice. Okay. Whew. All right. You are seeing me breathe a sigh of relief in real time because I have him in the Flock League, and this is a dream matchup. He's a must-start every format this week, Rashee Rice. Xavier Worthy, I'm going to say meh in the D tier. I don't know. It's the Cowboys. I'll say start. It's such a good matchup. I'm going to say sit Marquise Brown, of course, unless something changes with Rashee Rice's status. It's a fantastic matchup for these receivers, and so Rice and Worthy, I think you have to start them both at this point. For Javonte, it's a very tough matchup for Javonte this week, but you have to start him. You have to start CD. You have to start Pickens. And so you start all three of those guys in this Dallas Cowboys offense. It's tough matchups, but again, Pickens is dropping 20 a game right now. CD can drop 25 on your head easily, and Javonte Williams is running back 1 this season. So you got to start all of them. Obviously, Malik Davis we don't have ranked, but B tier for Javonte Williams and A tier for both CD Lamb and George Pickens this week. Give George Pickens some respect because he's been pretty solid. The third and final Thanksgiving game, the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm also looking forward to this Jamar Chase matchup. Jamar Chase in the S tier I'm going to have as a start this week. You're going to put him in, of course. You always are. No T. Higgins this week, it looks like. I'm not starting Andre Yoshivas, and so I'm going to say sit for him. I don't have him ranked this week. Chase Brown in the A tier has been much better recently. He's a start for us. Gary Brightwell, the backup running back, is going to be a start as well. No, I'm just kidding. He's going to be a sit. Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers, both for the Ravens, I'm going to list as starts. Good matchup for Derrick Henry in particular. We have him in the A tier. We have Zay Flowers in the C tier. And then we're going to sit the rest of the Bengals position group guys here. Justice Hill, DeAndre Hopkins, and Keaton Mitchell are guys I don't feel comfortable starting, but it is a pretty good matchup for the ones here, Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers. And then we have a Black Friday game, which in my opinion is a great idea because I, have the Thursday football, food and, football, and then I get to Friday and I'm hungover from all of it, and I'm like, okay, I really wish I had, just a little bit to keep me going here. Well, now we got a Black Friday game, so it's kind of awesome. Kyle Monangai, we actually have him listed higher in our tier list. We have him in the D tier and Swifty in the F tier because last week, Monangai actually got the majority of the carries there and had the touchdown. And so Monangai, I'm going to say in the D tier. It is a yellow matchup for him against the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of the guys we have in the D tier here are starts. I'm going to say meh just because it's a running back and we don't know what's going to happen there. With Swifty, I'm also going to say meh. You just don't know what this Swift is or what this split is going to look like every week. And again, yellow matchup for the running backs there. For the wide receivers, obviously it was DJ Moore for the Chicago Bears that had the big game last week. In terms of this week, I'm going to say Rome Odunze, you still have to start. DJ Moore, I'm still going to say meh because he's been mostly mid all season. And Luther Burden, I'm going to say sit. Again, yellow matchup for these Chicago Bears in this matchup. And then Philadelphia. I've got Saquon in the A tier. I'm going to start him. I'm not starting Tank Bigsby. And then Devontae Smith, I'm going to say start. I think you have to start Devontae Smith until further notice. He continues to put up very good points. And actually, A.J. Brown had a good game last week as well. And they both, again, against the Chicago Bears secondary here, they have a pretty favorable matchup. The Bears have given up the 7th most amount of points to wide receivers this year in fantasy football. I like their rest of season schedules. We've got them in the same tier. They both have been producing recently. I'm going to start both Philadelphia Eagles wide receivers in this matchup against Chicago. And also in a matchup where their Vegas light is green, they should score a lot of points in this game. And let's just hope that it's not Saquon Barkley that vultures all of the points from the wide receivers. But I'm starting on both of them no matter what. Now, we get to the regular slate of games here. And no buys this week, by the way. No bye weeks on Thanksgiving week. So, Los Angeles, Kyrie Williams and Puka Nacua, A and S tier, both starts for us. Devontae Adams, of course, going to be a start for us. Still a wide receiver one on the season. Very impressive for Devontae Adams, and Blake Corum is going to be a sit for us. It's a great matchup for Kyron. He's a must start in every format. It's a tough matchup for Puka and Devontae Adams, but you can't leave them out. The Carolina Panthers have given up the second least amount of points to wide receivers this year. But again, you can't sit these guys. It's kind of, you're kind of faced with that dilemma where it's a tough matchup, but they're two guys you cannot put on your bench. Rico Dowdle, tough matchup for him. I am going to say start for Rico Dowdle, sit for Chuba Hubbard, Rico in the B tier, Chuba in the I tier. Tevin Millen looks good. He's top 10 in receiving yards right now in the NFL. I'm going to put him in the C tier as a start. Neutral matchup for him. Jalen Coker as a sit in the H tier. Green lights for the Vegas lines for the Los Angeles Rams in this game. The Carolina Panthers red. So expect a little bit more. You're just starting the ones for the Panthers here. That's pretty much all you want. Now, it's mostly yellow lights across the board in this San Francisco and Cleveland game at this point in terms of, it's probably more of a tough matchup for San Francisco than it is an easy matchup, but you're starting Christian McCaffrey in the S tier. You're sitting Brian Robinson in the I tier. Between Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings, it's like, I'd probably say Jennings is a start, and I'd probably say Ricky Pearsall is a meh. That's how I would have it at this point. Again, a neutral matchup for both of those guys. Now for Cleveland, Quinshon Judkins, I'm going to have as a start. Again, neutral matchup, nothing special here. Middle of the road, Dylan Sampson as a sit. Jerry Jeudy in the G tier, I'm going to say sit. Cedric Tillman, I'm also going to say sit. I still don't trust Shedeur Sanders. I don't really want to start any pass catcher in that offense, including Harold Fenton on the tight end right now. Like, it's just not great for that offense. So that could end up being a defensive battle, but we'll end up seeing the Vegas lights aren't super good for that one either. The Houston Texans versus the Indianapolis Colts. Again, neutral matchups for the Houston Texans. And so for Woody Marks, I'm going to say start for this week. And then Nick Chubb, I'm going to say sit. In terms of the wide receivers, we got Nico. Of course, Nico coming off an 8-point game against the Buffalo Bills where he had the wind knocked out of him, left the game momentarily. He's fine. He's a start in the A tier. Jaden Higgins in the F tier, I think, is a meh. I think you could potentially plug Jaden Higgins in with his increased target volume recently and feel decent about it. Now on the Colts side of the ball, neutral matchup for Taylor. So you're going to start him, obviously. You're going to sit Goodson. We got Taylor in the S tier. Michael Pittman in the C tier is going to be a start for us this week. It is a tough matchup for Pittman, so we're going to move him down in our ranks a little bit. Alec Pierce has still been solid, but he only had 3 points last week. I'm going to put him as a meh with a tough matchup. Josh Downs, you really haven't seen enough volume for Josh Downs. He still has the problem where he's only playing 50 or less % of the snaps here. And it's led to a couple slower weeks for him without touchdowns. And so because of that, I'm going to have Josh Downs as a sit this week in a tough matchup against the Texans. Again, so kind of a mixed bag with the Colts here, but I think you do start Pitty and Taylor in this matchup for sure. Now going to New Orleans and Miami here. Devin Neal, assuming we have no Alvin Kamara, who has an MCL sprain this week. Devin Neal, I'm going to have in the G tier. I'm going to say meh because he is going to be the starting running back. But then Audric Estime, I'm going to say sit. I don't have him ranked. Chris Olave in the A tier is a start. Devon Vele is a sit in the H tier. So really the only guy in New Orleans I feel comfortable starting is Chris Olave, and even Olave has a tough matchup. Miami's been very good against fantasy football wide receivers this year. So, you have to start him. He's in the A tier. He's averaging 15 points a game. You got to do it, but at the same time, it's kind of tough, especially with the running backs. Devin Neal, you can start him at your own risk, in my opinion. And then, the Dolphins here, starting, of course, the positional ones with Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle in the S and A tier, respectively there. And then Ollie Gordon and Malik Washington, I'm going to say sit for those guys. They haven't been getting enough volume or fantasy production on a consistent basis. It's yellow lights all across the board. And you really, I think, you feel good about the ones here, and that's pretty much it for Miami. Atlanta versus the Jets here. This week, I'm going to go Bijan Robinson start, of course. Tyler Algier, it is a neutral matchup for these running backs. Tyler Algier in the F tier. And you do have weeks where Tyler Algier has been good and has been scoring touchdowns and getting red zone carries. But his snap share has never really gone up, and when he doesn't score a touchdown, you're talking about 5 points, anywhere from 0 to 5 points. He did have 12 carries still against New Orleans last week. This is a New York Jets defense that obviously traded away a lot of their players, and they're a neutral matchup. I'm going to say Tyler Algier in the F tier is a meh for this week. Darnell Mooney in the F tier, I'm also going to say meh, and then they don't have anybody else at wide receiver that I'm even going to rank. For the Jets, good matchup for these New York Jets running backs. And so I'm going to say Breece Hall's a start this week in the B tier. I still don't feel comfortable starting Isaiah Davis with no Braylon Allen there, so I'm going to say sit for him. Between John Mechie and Adonai Mitchell, I'm going to say meh for John Mechie. I think it's definitely worth considering starting him at this point. Adonai Mitchell's trash. You don't want to start him. But John Mechie, I do think you consider starting in this matchup against the Atlanta Falcons, so I'm going to have him as a meh. Going to Arizona and Tampa Bay. Yellow lights all across the board for Arizona, so we'll do this. No Marv this week is what I'm assuming. We don't have Marv ranked because the last I heard there was no update on Marv. So I don't even know if he's playing at this point. I guess, that would change the rankings if he did. But I'll kind of answer your hypotheticals here. Trey Benson in the C tier is going to be a start for us. Michael Carter in the I tier is going to be a sit for us, in my opinion. It should be Trey Benson's first week back, and I think they're going to give him the majority of the workload. And in his first week back, with so much uncertainty in that backfield, is really the only guy I feel comfortable starting there. But I am going to have him as a start. Michael Wilson, assuming Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't play, I am starting him for sure. And Greg Dortch, I also think you could start as well. When you're looking at Jacoby Brissett, how much he has been throwing the ball, he's been able to support not only Michael Wilson as a viable fantasy wide receiver option recently, but also Greg Dortch, who in the 2 games without Marvin Harrison Jr. has 18 and 16 points. And I think they're both starts if Marv doesn't play again this week. So wheels up for Trey Benson and wheels up for the wide receivers in this offense in this matchup against Tampa Bay, where you have Bucky Irving coming back. So return of Trey Benson and Bucky Irving in this same matchup. Bucky in the B tier, he's a start. You got to start him in his first week back. The other guys, Tucker and White, I think they've had plenty enough of those guys for now. And so I'm going to say sit for those guys. Ibuka's, of course, a start in the B tier as well. Tez Johnson in the F tier is going to be a meh for me. It's a good matchup for Bucky in his first week back. It's a neutral matchup for the wide receivers here. Tez Johnson still has been out producing Chris Godwin. We'll see if Chris Godwin kind of overtakes him on the depth chart here. But for now, we'll keep it at Emeka Ibuka and Tez Johnson as the guys that we're going to recommend this week. And we'll see about Godwin's usage and how that kind of, trends the next couple weeks. Now, Jacksonville and Tennessee. I'm going to have Etienne as a start in the A tier. Look, Etienne dominated the touches there last week. I'll have Tootin as a sit in the F tier until we see kind of what we saw at the beginning of that game 2 weeks ago, where you saw Bashal Tootin taking carries from Travis Etienne. Etienne dominated the carries, and he had 20 points there last week, and he's averaging 15 points a game in the season. He's a must-start right now. Now, in terms of the wide receivers there, I'm going to say both of them are D tier. It really does depend how much they end up passing the ball here. And in a game against Tennessee, I don't love it because I don't think they're going to end up passing the ball a whole lot. That said, we do have both of them ranked in the D tier because it of course, is a great matchup for them. Parker Washington the last couple weeks, obviously last week had 18 points, but he's had 17 or more points in 3 of his last 4 games. And then Jacoby Myers, who was just traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars last game, had 15 points. The game before had 11 points. And so I worry about the volume just in case they start running the ball a whole lot, but I am going to say start for both of these guys. They've both been playing at a startable level recently, and there's no Brian Thomas Jr. there this week, or at least there projects not to be one. And then Tony Pollard and Chim DK for the Titans, the 2 ones. Pollard and Tyjae Spears are pretty much the same. I really, really don't want to start either of these guys this week. I'm not putting them in my lineups unless they absolutely have to. It's a very tough matchup for these boys. Now, the wide receivers, Chim DK, if you don't have Ellick there, and you also, you obviously don't have Calvin Ridley. I don't think you're going to have Ellick as well. I think Chim DK is a meh this week. I started Chim DK in the Flock League last week, and he got me 21 points. And so you do have the special teams capabilities for Chim DK as well. He's really the only guy I'd consider starting on the Titans this week. Now, going to Minnesota versus Seattle here. Look, there's no way around it. it's been rough for these pass catchers for the Minnesota Vikings. Honestly, it's been rough for Aaron Jones, but I think he's still a start. His floor is 8 points, as you saw last week, and so I still think you plug him in. Jordan Mason is a sit for me. Justin Jefferson is, of course, going to be a start. You have to, but Jordan Addison is going to be a mad. Jordan Addison did nothing last week, and the fact of the matter is, it's a tough Seattle defense. It's a tough matchup for Aaron Jones, but it is also a tough matchup for Jefferson and Addison. And the one thing that you have to consider here is J.J. McCarthy potentially won't play this week. He's in the concussion protocol, and that would mean that Max Brosmer, Minnesota's own Max Brosmer, he could potentially get the start this week. And so we'll see. If it is Max Brosmer, as much as I actually like Max Brosmer, he might even be better than J.J. McCarthy, to be honest with you. I know so many people that's going to piss you off, but I don't think they're going to do anything with Max Brosmer either. So I'd say Jefferson and Jones are the guys you start there. Now, I am going to start Kenneth Walker this week for Seattle. It's a neutral matchup for them, and I'm going to sit Charbonnet because Kenneth Walker kind of dominated the carries there last week. I'm going to kind of continue that trend and start Walker in my lineups. JSN, of course, you don't even need to talk about it. He's the top of the top of the top. Cooper Kupp, sit. Rashid Shaheed, sit. You don't feel good about starting either of those guys right now. They don't get enough volume. Really, it's A.J. Barner's the second option in that passing attack right now. And so going to the Buffalo-Pittsburgh game, bad matchup for James Cook. Pittsburgh's got a really good run defense against fantasy football running backs, but you got to start him, right? You got to start him anyways. Ty Johnson is a sit, of course, in the H tier. James Cook in the A tier. Khalil Shakir in the C tier for us this week. Good matchup for Shakir. Wheels up. I'm starting him, and I'm sitting Gabe Davis here. And I'm sitting Josh Palmer as well. Pittsburgh has allowed the second most amount of points to wide receivers this year, so I feel very comfortable with Shakir, but not Gabe Davis or Josh Palmer. And then on the Pittsburgh side of the ball, Jaylen Warren, good start for him, good matchup for him. Buffalo's run defense has been bad. Kenneth Gainwell, I mean, Kenny Gainwell, honestly, the last couple of games has kind of proven that he could be a start every week as well. They've kind of been splitting the backfield between these two guys, and they both have been getting red zone carries. And Kenneth Gainwell's last two games, 18 and 29 points and 9 and 10 carries, but has been getting a ton of receiving usage as well. I think if you have Kenny Gainwell right now, I think you start him. He looks really good right now. DK is, of course, going to be a start, but he might get you 0 points. Calvin Austin, I'm going to have a sit. C tier for DK, H tier for Calvin Austin, and then B and D tier for Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. Again, a very good matchup for both the running backs, and I think both of them are pretty good starts this week in fantasy football. Now going to Vegas versus the Chargers. Neutral matchup for Ashton Jeanty. We'll have him in the A tier. We'll start him. Raheem Mostert, sit. You're not thinking about starting him. Trey Tucker, it's a bad matchup for him. I'm going to sit Tucker. I'm going to sit Lockett this week as a tough matchup against the Chargers this week. They should shut down those receivers. Now, for LA, Amari and Hampton. As of the recording of this video, I am waiting very patiently for them to say anything. They opened his practice window an hour ago. Yes! My team is coming back. Okay, sweet. So the practice window is open. He's going to play this week, it looks like. B tier for Marion Hampton. We're starting him this week. We are back. We're so back now. Kamani Vidal is a sit. Who cares about Kamani Vidal, right? And then, good matchup, really good matchup here for the wide receivers in this offense. And so Ladd's a start, QJ's a start, and Keenan Allen is a start. Look, 2 of the 3 of these guys are going to have really good games this week. I don't know who they're going to be, but you start all of them, in my opinion, against a very, very bad Las Vegas secondary that just allowed Shedeur Sanders to dice them up. I mean, it was just ridiculous. So we're excited about Amari Hampton in that game, though. C tier for Ladd and D tier for Quentin Johnson and Keenan Allen this week. Denver versus Washington. You're going to start Harvey and Sutton this week for Denver. For Harvey and Sutton, both, it's good, a really good matchup against Washington. Washington has allowed the 4th most amount of points to running backs and the 3rd most amount of points to wide receivers this year. So you're going to start them both. You're also going to start Troy Franklin in this matchup, who's also in the C tier. So it's C tier for all the relevant Broncos this week, and then Jaleel McLaughlin, who's in the H tier, who's a sit anyways, right? And then Washington. Chris Rodriguez, I'm not starting. No. This is a terrible matchup for all the Washington Commanders this week. No running back is starting. In terms of Debo, yeah, sure. Throw Debo in your lineup. He's going to be the number 1 there. I'm not starting Jalen Lane. I'm not even ranking him. Debo is the only Washington Commander this week in the D tier that we're going to start. It is a horrendous matchup for Debo, though, even. Obviously, he's going to have Surtain on him the whole time. So, all right, and then last but not least here, the New York Giants versus the New England Patriots. What is the Monday night game? And then you've got Tyron Tracy, who's been getting increased volume. I'm comfortable starting him now. It's a tough matchup for him, though, so kind of keep your expectations low for Tracy. Wandale's a must-start now. B tier for Wandale. Highest graded guy in this offense. Hodgins is going to be a sit for me. Slayton's going to be a sit for me. It looks like Wandale's offense right now, to be honest with you. Travion, A tier, because it is a fantastic matchup for the Patriots against the New York Giants. Travion will run over them, I hope and think. and he should have run over the Bengals, but whatever. Ramondre I'm going to have as a sit. He didn't get the volume last week that he was getting before his injury. Stephon Diggs must start. Kayshon Boutte I'm going to have as a meh this week, and Matt Collins as a sit. Again, a very, very good matchup for the New England Patriots this week against the Giants. So I want to start Travion and Diggs and potentially Kayshon Boutte in this matchup. So there you go. No buys this week. Lots of matchups to talk about. It should be a fun one. We got guys coming back from injury. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. I hope you win your matchup this week, and we hope to see you next week with our rest of season rankings, our rankings for week 14. We appreciate you guys. We love you. We'll see you here soon.